Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, yeah, Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, so be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz, tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time, tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, good morning and welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz. That's right. We are in December. This is the last month of 2023 and we are rounding it down. We got 7 tea times left for the year and then it's big, huge reunion time. And reunion time this year, we are doing all seasons. So season 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will see guests from 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And we have 14 countries coming in, over 85 guests that are returning. And you will also see some of the PR teams that I've worked with and all of those guests. But this morning, I have the incredible Janet Harvey joining me. She's the CEO of inviteCHANGE, best-selling author, human development coach, and visionary leader. She is a change maker. And that's what I do, is I love having change makers on Tea Time. So I'm going to do the disclaimer and a little bit on Janet and a little bit more on Janet. And then I'm going to get Janet in here and we're going to spill a good TEA. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that right now. Ring that little bell and you'll be notified when all these incredible tea times come up. If you're watching a replay, push hashtag replay and let me know where you're tuning in from, because I always like to know where my audience is coming in from. So a little bit on Miss Liz on how we do this. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment and taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in any show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, all tea times in 2023 are done on Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's a different date on Thursday, it's a rescheduled tea time or a surprise guest that wants to have a second cup of tea with Miss Liz. So now a little bit on Janet. Well, Janet Harvey is a best-selling author of award-winning leadership and coaching books, inviteCHANGE, Lessons from 2020, the Year of No Return, and CEO of inviteCHANGE, a human development organization specializing in generative learning and coaching that shapes a world where people love their life's work. As a visionary leader in the global professional coaching industry, Janet Harvey is an International Coaching Federation Master Certified Coach and a celebrated educator who has engaged leaders, teams, and global enterprise to invite change that sustain well-being and perform excellence. As Janet shares, coaching is in its many forms has its roots the effects of awakening consciousness and doing so in a highly accelerated fashion that improves productivity and financial outcome while also generating a healthier workplace climate. Janet Harvey uses her executive and entrepreneurial experience to cultivate leaders in generated wholeness, their signature generated coaching and learning process to be in future fits. Let me get Janet in here and I can grab some tea and we're going to have a good conversation this morning. Leave your questions and comments in the bottom and we'll get those into Janet as well. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning, Miss Liz. Lovely to be here.
It is awesome to have you here. I can't believe it's already December. Like this whole year just flew right by. I'm just like, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Right?
Well, I went into all the amazing people you've interviewed and all of your audience that's benefited from those things that they've shared. And, people who are in the world like you, creating opportunities for people to learn and remember self-love. Doesn't get any better, Miss Liz. Good work.
Well, thank you so much, Janet. So I want to get started how I do all of these tea times. Janet, who were you as a little girl and who are you now as a grown woman?
I'm going to tell you they're one and the same. There's this great picture of me when I was 2, sitting on the kitchen floor of my grandmother's home with this big grin on my face, having just dumped over the trash. And it is a story that gets told in our family. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and I always have joy. In my essence statement, it ends with riding on the winds of joy. My husband can't believe it that I wake up in the morning, immediately awake, and I'm always have a smile on my face and usually laughing. I feel blessed to be gifted that way, and it is what I spread. Even if I'm walking down a major city street, I always have a smile on my face, and I say good morning or good afternoon or good evening to whoever I walk by, and they're always surprised. And I know in that moment, it's like giving them a God wink. It's awesome.
I love that you have that little giggle in the morning, right? My nickname is Giggle, so when I get tired, I always throw that little giggle, and everybody's like, "Oh, Elizabeth is tired; she's giggling." We don't giggle enough. Just the word giggle. How can you not?
I know
laugh
it makes you laugh, doesn't it? Yes, it's great.
So, Janet, what got you into leadership?
Wow, that's a big question. I don't know that anybody makes a conscious decision to be in leadership. Because I was the youngest and there's a pretty good spread to my next siblings, and both of my parents worked all day long. So I was quite independent very early. And I was also a competitive athlete, first in swimming and then in figure skating. And I used to get up at 4 o'clock, make myself breakfast, and walk through the park to the outdoor skating rink to train before I went to school. So self-leadership was something that came very early for me, and I became very resourceful. I became very present to the world, and I really, I think, just fell into whenever something was happening, like whether it was the float for the New Year's parade that our class would be creating, or scouts going out on a trip. I always ended up being the one with the map, figuring out where we were going. And I just love life. And leadership for me is about bringing everyone around into the love of life. And to me, that's what leadership does.
Well, I found when I did my homework that you have to lead in learning, leading, and living. And that's kind of what loving is, right?
Yes.
So what do those 3 words mean to you, Janet?
I am an insatiable learner. And I think that I will never have enough breaths in my life to discover all the things that life holds for us on planet Earth and in this universe. And I chuckle sometimes when people say, "Oh, I'm so bored," because I know myself that when the minute I'm bored, I'm like, I must be doing something that's not enlivening my being. Shift. Right? That's my responsibility to choose how I'm relating to my lives. And that's a principle of personal sovereignty that I've been working with leaders and teams about all over the world for many years now. And it's what came in. Those three words really hold what I accept responsibility for. I'm never a victim in my life. Somehow I got myself there. I was part cause or agent of that experience that was unpleasant, uncomfortable, sometimes rather horrific. And in that moment, to accept responsibility that, you know what, I didn't listen. I didn't listen to my heart, didn't listen to my gut. I didn't listen to my head that knew better than to put myself in that situation. Okay, I have the choice now to take a nice deep breath and go in a different direction. And in the meantime, also give myself a moment to reflect. How did I fall asleep? What did I miss? Right? What wasn't I paying attention to? What distracted me from what was really going on to be looking at this thing over here going, it's really not the shiny bauble I thought it was. Right? And I think the power of reflection is inherent in learning. And you can't lead well in a rapidly changing environment with tons of complexity and uncertainty if we aren't available for learning. Where does learning come from? Curiosity, for sure. But it also comes from another quality that I think is part of living, and that's a sense of wonder. This is a place I think we have abandoned a little bit. My definition of wonder is rapt attention when something astonishing shows up right in front of us, that we pause and recognize that we have a moment that's never happened before for us. Now it has, and it's part of us. And I think wonder's related to joy. That I'm when I can have moments of wonder in my day, it makes everything else that might have felt like sandpaper and I didn't really want to be doing it, puts it in context. And I realize what a miracle it is to be in a human body, to be alive here, this moment.
I love that you say sandpaper, because I love when we use metaphors and when we use items to understand, to get people to engage, right? And understand the message a little clearer on how roughness is, right? We use sandpaper. You're using items to describe how to feel, the emotions, how the environment, right? The smell, the sound, wonder. Like the word wonder, we don't even use that in today's language. Like when you said that, I was like, oh, wonder. I had to write it down because we don't use words like we used to, where we used to express ourselves. Now it's kind of short form everything, right? Just shorten it up, abbreviate it, create its own language now. We're not using the words to express the emotions anymore. And do you find in leadership that we're lacking that in today's world?
I might go in a slightly different doorway for this, and I love the subject matter. We're coming up on like 55 years of emotional intelligence work, right? Brilliant book written by Daniel Goleman. Lots of people get certified in an assessment instrument, help people understand how emotionally intelligent they are. What I worry about is that's all up here in the head, and it's rear view mirror. And I think that I'm working on a little hypothesis, and it goes directly to what you're talking about with metaphor. We've lost the language to describe the experience we're having.
That's exactly where I was going. We can't describe the experiences anymore. We want to keep it really short form and it was okay. Yep. No, don't, express, open it up.
Yeah.
And I love deep conversation. So I love where this conversation is going this morning, because, sometimes we have to serve a deep tea and strong tea for people to open that mind and heart. And I love that you said, Janet, that it's here. And that's what makes me afraid is the emotional intelligence is here, not here.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think there's hope, right? The
Yes.
way you hold, and that's kind of a jargony word, but you convene a conversation that is safe
Yeah.
for people to think about their own lives as they're listening to whoever you have as your guest, having a conversation with you. You're opening up the treasure chest that is a person's life. And your listeners get a chance to open their own treasure chest at the same time, see their lives. And I think this is the beginning, that when we convene spaces where people can hit the pause button on the crazy, busy, highly engaged, transactional, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. No, you don't gotta go.
Yeah. You
Let's
got to
just sit.
slow, take
Yeah,
a moment, pause.
empathy. And in those moments, most people feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? That their fear shows up, their anxiety shows up, and they don't want to feel that. So they stay in action to not feel the emotions. But here's the crazy irony. If we stay for a moment longer than our discomfort, we exhale. We exhale. And in the exhale, and even just a gentle turn of our head, drop in the shoulders, soften the eyes, we reset our parasympathetic system. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And if we gave ourselves permission to do that 3 times a day, right? Tea break in the morning, when we finish our lunch before we go back to work, before our monkey mind gets us revved up. And if we do it, I tell my clients this all the time, do this for a few minutes before you leave the office, so that when you go home, you're not tethered. There's no dangling threads cording you back to work, and you're available for your partner and your children and siblings or friends, whoever is around you. You're available for receiving the love of the people that are in your life.
Yeah.
Those are conscious choices that we can make. And they're small things, but they are incredibly empowering to the restoration of wonder and joy.
Right. I always tell my kids little steps are better than big jumps, because then you have the time to experience the experience, you know, you have that moment to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't be so fast. And I love that you said, Janet, that, we stay so focused in action so we don't deal with the emotions. We don't deal with you know, I think that's how the world has been. It's just go, 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 go. And when we pause, then we start to shut down because we don't understand the pause anymore because we're so go, go, go all the time.
Okay.
And that's why I like to have tea with my guests, and I like to slow them down a little, and I like to slow my listeners down a little and just say, take the moment, join me for an hour 3 times on Thursday and just slow your minds down and get into the heart, because I feel that there is hope out there, like you said, Janet. When we open up the heart, there's amazing hope coming. And I love that you said that, listen to the gut, because we don't talk about the gut, listening to the gut. Now, as a leader in Invite Change, when you work with your clients and your coworkers, do you tell them to listen to the gut?
All the time. There's a wonderful body of work called M-braining, little m, capital B. So M-braining. And this body of work came forward about 20 years ago, and it was really capturing some science work that's been happening to understand that there are many sources of brains in the body, and that actually the heart and the gut brain have been around longer and are more profound in our lives than the front of our brain, where the executive function is, where everybody thinks, I have to be analytical, I have to be objective, I have to be disciplined, I need to, follow the path. And we've gotten a little out of balance with the other aspects of the brain that are more about intuition and our sensory system. And that's actually the pathway to the heart, where we can feel the affect, the influence, the impact of the experiences we're having. and the gut brain that is instinctive. It knows what to do long before our brain ever gives words to it. Think about this. When you're sitting at a table for a meal and one of your utensils starts to fall, do you notice how quickly the body picks it up? Before our brain even knows that that piece of silverware is about to drop, we've caught it, right? Our body actually is the beginning of recognizing something's happening. So in some ways, this is about returning home to an understanding of something that already exists. The body doesn't have right, wrong, yes, no, black and white. It just knows unity. And the gut brain and the heart brain are the ways in which we navigate the world. We just don't think so. Somehow our ego and our executive function think they're the head of the table of wisdom keepers inside our being, right? I know it's a little vague for me to say it that way, but truthfully, in our quiet moments, don't you find that there's a voice that is kind of parental? There's probably a voice that's a leader, of course, because of the work you do. There's a voice that's young, free, no responsibility, right? Click up your heels and can do anything I want today. A little bit like Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, right? There's the voice of the champion. There's the voice of the underdog. There's keep going, right? Many, many, many aspects of the self. And the only way we can listen to those aspects of the self is in the pause. Pause gives us so much more time than it takes because we can hear, hang on a second, that's not such a good idea what you're thinking about doing. Right? There's going to be some risk in it, or you might get your heart broken. And my brain might say, thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to get my heart broken anyway. It's that interaction that matters. Not so much whether you do or you don't do it, but that we allow all aspects of our being to express. This is really living into the full embodiment of a human. That's wholeness. Wholeness is what comes when we balance left and right, when we balance masculine, feminine qualities that all of us possess. That's what we're talking about here.
So, Janet, I want to get into the human development because some of my listeners out there might not even understand what human development is, because we don't speak of it enough. We don't engage with our human bodies enough. We just speak, hear, and see, right? And the rest of it, we don't think. We don't, a lot of people are, I'm just going to do it because I can. Right. I'm just going to do that choice because I can, but they don't take responsibilities or accountabilities of the choices that they're making. Right. And I really want to get that out there for human development, for all the listeners out there that might not understand what we're talking about this morning.
One of the questions I've been asked a lot this year when I'm on podcasts like yours is, why do you do what you do? And my answer is always human dignity. In my book, dignity is a birthright, and that every one of us came into being in this body in this moment in time to fulfill the human family. That's not an easy responsibility. You do realize that we are animals, like we're part of all the relations on the planet.
That's why we giggle and we act silly because we are animals, right?
We are animals. We're animals that are wired for social connection. So in the absence of it, we suffer. And because we crave that social connection, we stay with our family for the longest of any animal species. We call 18 as the age of majority. But truthfully, the human brain doesn't fully develop until age 30. We spend a long time becoming the adult, and we have a lifetime from 30 forward to unlearn all the things that we put in place to stay safe until we were fully developed at 30 to accept that responsibility. This is like, we don't want to show kids racing cars on television because at 16, you don't have any way to regulate your emotions. You're too darned excited. You're going to go racing down that road that's supposed to be 30 miles an hour at 60 miles an hour. And then that tree's going to jump out at you, right? So this is the human developing takes time. takes time. Hence why parenting is so important, that there's a relationship, an open relationship between parent and child, to help them navigate, to help them learn to develop discernment. That you might get me on a soapbox here, but I know everybody says be non-judgmental or suspend your judgment. And that's like asking the human body not to breathe.
Right?
We make sense of the world by discerning. To judge and to use judgment is to discern. It's critical thinking. To ask the question, what's the evidence of that? Where did that situation come from? What's the background of these people? Are they really experienced enough to be telling me this information? Right? This is exercising our judgment is something that's critical to our ability to determine what's safe, what's not, what's in service and what's not. When we are judgmental, right? When we want to push back on somebody, raise our voice, out of proportion to the situation. Maybe we're yelling or maybe we're sobbing, right? An extreme emotion. It's usually because we feel insecure. It's not about the situation out there. But because we've lost a connection to it, we don't realize that. So we're mean to each other. Do you see the roots of indignity?
Yep.
And we close our eyes to things that are horrific. The homeless on the street, the children who don't have shoes that are walking around barefoot and it's 32 degrees outside. We don't look. We don't look because it would require us to pay attention to our own heart that says, but the grace of God, that would be me. So to return to a sense of dignity that is a birthright for each of us is why I do the work that I do, to help people wake up, see what's actually occurring, and realize there is gentleness and compassion and kindness in the world. And it starts with me. How am I being with me? Can I be kind to myself? And can I pay attention to my responsibility to choose in ways that sustain being kind to myself? That's my human development. And the more that I do that, the more I can see what's in the world. And I can make my choices about where am I equipped to contribute in some way. It might be as small as walking down the street with a smile and saying good morning or good evening to someone and helping them to remember, oh yeah, that's right. I'm around a bunch of people. I'm not, eyes closed walking down the street to my next transaction. To something more magnificent, like giving $20 million to pay off the scholarships that people had and were thinking they had to pay back. They don't have to because somebody stepped in on their behalf. These are obviously two extremes, but they're all part of the same human family. How do we begin to give priority to how do we restore dignity with each other? That's why I do what I do.
And I am so glad that I have you here because I've been trying to get this out for 4 years out there for people to just open their mind and hearts and pay attention. Do the mirror. The mirror. What is bugging you about that person is lying within you. Yes. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's something that is eating at you. You're getting frustrated because this person is doing this or doing that. And then you have to look at yourself and say, well, am I doing that in some way? Is that why it's bugging me? Or am I not doing it and I want to? Because sometimes that's where the judgment comes in, is we judge others that we don't understand because we're too afraid to try it ourselves. Right.
So there's a really easy way to remember this principle, right? One finger pointing out means there's 3 pointing back at me. So if and this is on the positive side. So Miss Liz, I can point my finger at you and say, thank you for your leadership to help people understand human development. But the only way I see it in you is because it's in me.
Right. It's that mirror, right? And we're so afraid of the mirror. I talk about the mirror all the time. It's like the mirror within the cup. When you look within your cup, what are you actually serving? What is the purpose behind what you serve in life? Why do you do what you do? Why do you serve what you serve, Janet? So I want to get into your T, Janet. So if I give you the letters TEA, what words would you give me? And what are you serving to the audience this morning?
I'm going to serve, this is based on the new book coming out in January, tension is enduring and the source of aspiration.
And you want to tell me a little bit about those 3 words?
So,
Without giving away the new book, because the new book is coming out in January, correct?
yeah, but I can tease a little bit about the book. Okay.
We're doing a little teasing.
A little teasing, yeah. So I had this experience in the early 2000s. Over the space of about 60 days, I had 3 chief executive officers call me on the phone to say to me, you're doing great work with my senior team. I'm very pleased with how they're all developing. But I keep hearing that you make their head hurt. And I don't know what to make of that. Well,
was that a good hurt or is that a bad hurt?
That's exactly what I said the first time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's too funny. You picked right up on that. And then the second time it happened, I thought, I wonder what's going on here. And then it happened a third time. I said, that's it. I need to go find out what in the heck this means. So I started to do interviews with my clients to see if I could understand what were they coming up against in themselves that it felt like it was making their head hurt. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. They were so stuck in their head. And the work I was doing with them was about getting their feet underneath them, how to stay grounded and centered, how to not overreact when mistakes happen, to stop pointing fingers and spreading blame and shame. And this is the reason they were having trouble with turnover on their teams or bad morale, toxic workplace kind of stuff. That this was really inside of the leader. Where inside of you have you decided you're inadequate to the job? Because right now you're making everybody else miserable. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
So, we often talk about the judgment as we're mad at somebody or disappointed with someone, or we disagree strongly. But the other side is true too. Yeah. When I am revering somebody else, I am letting my power go to that person. I love who that person is. I will never be like them is the thought that comes into our head. But the truth is, I cannot see it in that other person if it isn't in me. Might be hidden under, layers and layers and layers of blankets. But it's time to take the blankets off because I've seen it. I cannot unsee what I value in another person, which means I cannot unsee it in me. The pause is what helps us come back home. So tension exists. I have this tension between my reverence for someone and my own sense of inadequacy. Ugh. That's never going to go away. As a human being, I'm never going to get out from underneath it, but I can begin to shift my relationship with it. If I can have the aspiration that changes that self-story from I could never be that to one day I am that. I am that today, just nobody knows it yet, right? That's the evolution in the self-talk. Because I realize I see it in that person, it's in me. What are the choices that are keeping it buried under layers of blankets? Let me take the first one off, take the next one off, take the next one off. That's what we do in our pause time. Pause gives more time than it takes because in that moment when we take a breath, we reflect inside and we remember I have an authority to choose how I'm relating to my life. I can decide to be a taker or a giver. I can decide that I'm going to receive the blessings of others and be grateful, as opposed to, why are you doing this? Do you have an agenda?
Right? We're like, okay, well, why are you really here for?
Exactly. This can't actually be real.
I was like that for years. I was like, okay, wow, what do you really want? And then I was like, let go of it's like you said, lift the blankets, start taking them off. Not everybody's coming at you for something. Some people just generally want to be in your company. Right. And learn to accept it,
and actually to revere it. It's like that they want to be in your company. Have a center in yourself that says, wow, I feel grateful. I want to be in this person's company. And, it could be that somebody has an agenda when they come at you. So be discerning. So get curious. What has you want to be in my company? What is it that we might do together? Let's go take a walk. Tell me about your life. Tell me about who you are. What are the things you enjoy doing? And as relationship builds, all of those self-protective strategies soften for both the person who might be manipulating and us who aren't certain about whether to trust that other person, because we're at home in ourselves.
Yeah.
This is why human development work is so important. We're coming back home. We're letting go of protection that we did at 10 or 12 or 14 or 18, because we realize we have more capacity as an adult now than we did then. And that belief doesn't need to run us.
Yeah.
So we create a new one. That's the key thing about beliefs, right? We constructed them to help ourselves at an earlier time. But if we come current to who we are and we cultivate our understanding and appreciation for all of our resource and capacity, then we create new beliefs. And those beliefs are about the source of our aspiration. I believe in my power to make a difference in the world. Yes, you do, Miss Liz. And that's the reason you're able to do all that you do every year. You believe in that in yourself. And then you create that for other people. This is what I'm talking about when I say human development.
Janet, I love that you say that. Believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, first off, you're never going to get to the next step. You never. And when I think of tea, I think of it as an application, as that prop that gets everybody to the table. Now, what are we going to talk about? Where are we going to open these doors? What opportunities are going to come?
Right.
It comes back to the name of your business, Invite Change. You know, when you bring a prop to the table and it opens up that conversation, you're inviting change. You're inviting movement and opportunities. So I have a question here from a guest, that a viewer, and they want to know how you got the name Invite Change.
Thank you. I've actually had people who have been customers for a long time who will call on the phone and go, do you realize I just looked at your logo and saw the word invite? I've always thought the name of your company was Change. Makes me laugh, yeah. So I was blessed in my life to, I think my early story to you about the 2-year-old on the floor, I was also verbal. I was already making complete sentences at 6, 7 months old.
Wow.
So, you know, God, universe, spirit, source, whatever your faith is, infused in me a lot of capability, and I started using it. So it never occurred to me that people didn't like change. I had a vivid imagination. I, you know, as all children do, you know, we play with whatever it is that we have, the sticks and pine cones out in the backyard, or the toy dolls, or the blocks, or I love to do paint by number. I had them all over my bedroom. My imagination was very active. And I realized that if I didn't like something, I could just change it. And I did over and over and over again. As a figure skater, I loved training and I loved practicing my routines. Then I would do it one way. That didn't quite express the music. Let me do it a little differently. I was always in that process of evolving. And I realized when I hit professional life that other people didn't work like that. That for whatever reason, they liked swimming in their own lane. They liked coloring inside the lines. They did not like things that deviated from whatever the status quo was. And I thought, all right, I know that that's a safety response, right? Trying to manage fear. But what is fear? It's covering the thing we hold most dear, which is ourselves, right? Our sense of self-love without condition. So we're all striving for. And the minute that I think everything out there is danger, I'm denying myself access to my self-love. So I thought, I wonder if I could help people learn how to unlock that unbridled joy inside of them, that the essence of who they are. And the first step of that was, what is my essence? So
There's
there's
so
only-
much that we don't understand about the human development because it's not taught to us.
that's right. It isn't taught. And everybody else can see our essence, but we often hold it another underneath layers and layers and layers of blankets because it's precious. So we don't want anybody to hurt us. And yet that's what's longing to be out in the world and for everybody to see it and for us to be in our joy and expressing it.
Yeah.
However, because we don't teach it, as you just said, that's the first step. Allowing someone to support you to identify your essence traits, and then constructing your life experience in a way that has you practice it every single day, always relating to your life, showing up, interacting, making decisions based on what honors your essential traits, our values. We often live out our parents' values until we start to rebel, right? Fancy word is individuate. And we construct our new value system, the one that is unique to our essence. And then we often have guiding principles. Like one of mine is early is easy. I hate waiting till the last minute. I used to be a master procrastinator because I really trust my intuition, but I can't do that as a leader. As a leader, I want to anticipate. And when we get things moving a little bit at a time, step by step, early is easy. We're done a week ahead of time. Nobody's stressing. This is a good thing. I don't like stress in my company. I don't.
Me neither.
None of that. So I'm describing the process of learning to invite the change we want rather than feeling a victim to change that comes at us. It's always coming at us. By the way, our body changes every second in thousands of ways. So to say we don't do change well is ridiculous. What's actually happening is that we're afraid and uncertain about the future. Well, whose job is it to define the future? This is why I say enduring, tension's enduring. That's the fear of the change, but it's also the source of our aspiration. If we'll focus on the aspiration that we have, now I can say, what choice can I do right now that's a step toward it? What's another step toward it? What's another step toward it? And oh, by the way, who's in my circle that is a resource for me? What could I lean into that would help me sustain that essential experience I want on my path to my aspiration? I'm not thinking anymore about who hurt me and what problem happened 2 years ago or what situation blew up on me. I'm not thinking about that anymore. I'm thinking about what I'm creating.
Yep.
And now my life force is activated. That's inviting change.
I like that word. Life force.
It's both.
Life force and life source.
Yeah.
We don't talk about these things enough, and we need to start getting them into the school systems and that. So Janet, do you go into the schools and universities and talk on human development?
I do in universities, and I work with people all over the world who want to develop coaching capability. Some people do that for their leadership. Some people do that because they want to be a coach inside of an organization. Some people do that to be an entrepreneur and build a practice as a coach, helping others in human development. Some people just to have personal growth, right? The journey of learning how to deeply listen to another human being beyond the words, to the essence expression that's right in front of us. Learning that capability is mindset and skill set. And it fundamentally makes life better, which is why we say shaping a world where people love their life's work. What is our life's work? For me, my life's work is about human dignity, right? For you, your life's work is about giving people a moment for tea, pause and remember themselves. Each person knows what their life's work is, but they've lost sight of it. It's not right on the tip of their tongue. And this is the value of working with a coach, is that you come back home to yourself and you begin to accept responsibility to choose from an inner authority how you're going to relate to your life so that you are living the life you love.
Yeah. Well, it's coming right back to that cup of tea, right? Coming back to the within yourself, And this is what we do on Tea Time is we serve within. We serve what is within you. I say it all the time. I cannot serve my guests. I can only host my guests because they have to do the serving. They have to bring the story. They need to bring the reason and the purpose and why they do it. You know, I just bring the flavors and blends, and I just say, let's have a good old tea party here, and let's serve some good joy. You know, get some good information out there, get some positive out there. You know, we're stuck in a society where it's so heavy and so dark sometimes that it makes it hard to understand the human development of change. And change is scary. You know, nothing good grows in easy and comfort. I say this all the time to my kids. You put that seed in the ground, when you plant that garden, you need to water it, but it's in the dirt, it's in the dark. It needs that love, it needs that support, just like we do as individuals. It's like you said, we need that human connection, right? We need that um, you know, understanding one another. I want to talk about the book that you have out. It's called Invite Change. So you want to share a little bit about that book, Janet, and the one that's coming out in January?
Sure. So when I wrote the book, Invite Change, Lessons from 2020, the Year of No Return, it was, I started writing in July of 2020. And the reason it came to be is that in the fall of 2019, as a team at Invite Change, we decided it was time. I'd had a dream for a decade that we would begin hosting a social progress conference that would invite people who were working on a variety of social issues, large, big, and practical problems, and having some success, to come and share their best practices, to inspire, to educate, and to start to build community of people in all kinds of practices that are doing that kind of work in the world. And of course, we all know what happened in March of 2020, don't we? So this big conference we were going to do in Miami, Florida, with 50 speakers coming in from all 6 continents. And we had expected to have a couple thousand people there. Well, that wasn't happening. So, you know, we pivoted, and it ended up being a virtual conference, smaller than we had thought. But one of the strategies the team had was, hey, why don't you go ahead and write a book? And we'll use that as part of the pitch for the conference. I'm like, are you nuts? It's July. And they said, no, we've cleared your calendar, and we've found a really good editor who knows we're going to be on a fast timeline. All you need to do is sit down and write. Well, you know, when I've been doing this work for as long as I've been doing this work, they were right. I had a lot to say. And of course, we're on the other side of George Floyd. So here in America, all of the issues of oppression and mistreatment and indignity were, you know, fresh in everybody's minds and hearts. And of course, it's not unique to America. We have our version of it, but it's everywhere in the world that we're not very nice to each other as human beings. But what I think the pandemic did is that it awakened us that we have been tolerating this indignity for decades.
Yes.
Maybe thousands of years, but for sure, those of us who are alive in this time, we know for decades we have tolerated it. Enough is enough. The pandemic leveled the playing field. And the reason I said it was the year of no return is because we couldn't unsee the mismatch in experience that people were having in their personal lives, in their physical and emotional health, in their workplaces, in their places of worship, in their government, right? It was open book to all the things that we were denying. Like, oh no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything wasn't fine. It hadn't been fine for a long time. And now we had to sit in it because everybody was locked down. We had to be in the question, am I living my life the way I want to be? And the answer for so many was no, and still is. I just looked at the 2023 report on the state of the global workplace that Gallup issues. 59% of the workforce is disengaged and in quiet quitting. 18% of the workforce is not only disengaged, but they're actively toxic in the workplace,
Wow.
which means we have only 23% who are actively engaged, and we're celebrating this. Oh, goodness gracious. That's
Ooh, the
absolutely
numbers speak
crazy.
volumes right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is what I meant, that we're not going back, folks.
Yep.
The human family is pushing back and saying, no, I am not tolerating this anymore. So, we see things like the rise in the gig economy, and small business has always been the backbone of America. That's growing by leaps and bounds. We've demanded there be some response to climate change. It's coming. Way too slow for all of us, but it's coming at
Yeah.
least, right? Like huge jobs getting created in that particular space. The healthcare system is dissolving before our very eyes, but there are innovators who are coming behind it with something called value-based care and population health, and bringing communities together around collaborative solutions. I could go on and on and on this, but we are at the beginning of a new way of relating. And to me, unless we learn to invite change and accept our responsibility for it, we're going to continue to kvetch. And yeah, that's all you're going to see. It's sort of like the old hammer and the nail. If everything looks like a nail, you're going to keep hammering it. It's not going to change anything. All you're going to do is put the hammer in the ground and it becomes permanent. Is that really what you want? I don't think so. Let's take voting. People say to me, my vote doesn't matter. So here's what I've been doing, Miss Liz. I've been asking people, do you know where your water comes from? How about, where does the sewage go when you use the toilets in your house? How about the roads you drive on? How do those get maintained? How about mass transit? How does that happen? What about our educational system? How do they decide how many teachers there are to what number of students? How do they decide where they're going to build schools so that kids can have some social time and aren't commuting 2 hours to get to class? In other words, these are all things that our taxes pay for. Everybody wants to make taxes wrong. It's like, but that's how we create our life, living in a place of 370 million people, right? Taxes are things that we pay so that we have access to the services that makes our life easier. That's a reciprocal relationship.
Yep.
Would we do it better all the time? Absolutely. And that's what voting is, right? Get informed, be involved. Even if the only thing you do is your local city council, go to the city council meeting and find out how they're making decisions on your behalf, because they're changing your life.
Yep.
You don't have to be a victim to it.
And Janet, I really think that's important, because I hear that all the time. My vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Well, then don't complain about the changes that are not being made, because you're not speaking up. You're not using your voice. You're not bringing the change that you want to see. You're just allowing it to be, no, it's fine.
Yeah. And it's not fine, right?
Yeah.
People are suffering. It's not fine. And that's up to each of us to step up.
Yeah. And well, it's that mirror again, right? Look in the mirror. If you want to complain about politics, fix it.
Right.
Stand in front of the mirror and fix it.
That's exactly right. And stand in front of the mirror and say, you know what? I am resourceful. I am capable. I am creative. I am a part of this community. My voice matters.
Yep.
And then go to a meeting. So the second book is called From Tension to Transformation, A Leader's Guide to Generative Change. And as I was telling the story about the leaders who told me their head hurt, I began to see that tension is enduring. It doesn't ever go away. Tension is part of our human experience. It's that sandpaper moment.
Yeah.
And the more complex the situation, the more important it is that we can hit the pause button and say, what's going on here? What really happened with this breakdown in this project, or this situation that we find ourselves in that nobody likes? What happened? That's reflecting to say, what actions did we take? How did we decide on those? What was motivating our behavior? What was actually present that we dismissed? That's probably living in my habits, my preferences, my assumptions, and my biases. Now that I can see it more clearly, I can ask more questions, and now I can construct a new result. That's the vehicle for generative change. And so this book is all about how do we sit a little longer in the discomfort of the tension so we can connect to something new to construct. And that's aspiration. Now we're all moving to the future instead of rehashing what's already happened I can't do anything about.
I really love it, Janet. So when is this book coming out?
January 9th.
So are you super excited about this one?
I'm super excited. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be available on Amazon.com. It will be out for pre-sale shortly. We'll make a social media announcement. I'll be sure and let you know. I probably know it for the celebration, the year-end celebration, Tea Time. And I am very excited about getting out in the world and doing some speaking. I know that there are a lot of young leaders out there hungry for trying to figure out how to lead in this crazy complexity and uncertainty that we have. And this book is full of tips and ways of responding to it that will be healthier and set them up for success.
Oh, I'm super excited, and I'm like you too, right? Getting out there and speaking again, getting the voices heard. We paused long enough. Now it's time to rise, and it's time to make that change. And invite change is a perfect way to go. So if you'd like to reach out to Janet and know more about Janet, you can check out her website at www.invitechange.com. Very simple. Don't forget the invite. It's not just change.com, it's invitechange.com. It's like an invitation to change your life and work on your life. So Janet, what final words do you have for the listeners this morning?
You have a one precious life. Remember, you have an inner authority to decide how you choose to relate to it. Accept that responsibility. It's worth it every minute of your life.
I really want to thank you, Janet. It's been a pleasure just sitting with you. I love deep, strong teas. Anyone that knows Miss Liz knows that I like to get deep, and I like to understand the human mind and why we do what we do and why the choices we make, right? And why we're so afraid of taking accountability and responsibility. Maybe that's something that Janet can write in the third book, and don't be afraid to ask those questions, because there is no wrong question out there. If you don't ask, you don't know. So Janet, it's been a pleasure sitting with you and having tea with you and just getting to know you a little bit better. And Janet will be attending the reunion tea time, and we will have some goodies. So be sure to check that out on December 21st. It will be a free event, but donations can be made to Miss Liz to keep these podcasts going and future projects that Miss Liz has on the go. So if you'd like to make a donation, you can go to Miss Liz's website at www.misslizsteatimes.com. Share the event with your friends, your family. There's going to be all walks of life joining us. We're going to have some entertainment. We're going to have all those goodies. And Janet will be one of the returning guests that is coming December 21st. Janet, before we wrap up, we have just a little under 2 minutes. I want to know why your favorite color is blue.
You figured that out, huh? You like my Women of the World? I love this. I love this painting. Why is my favorite color blue? Well, my eyes are blue. That could be part of it. I think blue carries a regal vibrancy. I think actually my favorite color is purple because it's the blend of red and blue. And when I got married in 2004, my wedding dress was purple.
Oh, well, look at that.
Yeah, and it was made out of raw silk of blue thread and red thread woven together to create a beautiful purple silk. And yeah, and I made my own wedding dress too, by the way.
Oh, wow. There you go. Invite change, right? With the colors of the, I love the blending. It's just like a cup of tea, right? You blend two different flavors and you get
That's
the
right.
pot of tea. It's just amazing. So thank you again, Janet, for joining me. I will be back at 3 p.m. this afternoon with Nan Artwright, and she'll be talking about children's mental health. And then we're wrapping it up with Stephanie Levine, and she's going to be talking about romance and mystery. So we
Mhm.
got a flavor for everybody today. If you'd like to know more about Miss Liz, check out the website again. Again, Janet, thank you for joining me. And again, check out Janet's website, www.invitechange.com. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to reach out and connect with Janet, you're more than welcome to send Miss Liz a message. Until then, I'll see everybody at 3 p.m. for the second tea time of this week.
Thank you, Miss Liz, for your wonderful gifts to the world.